9-3. Let's look at the third runway at Heathrow. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has given government backing for it. She said the expansion of the airport is badly needed and could create 100,000 jobs. Reeves also said she wanted to see spades in the ground in the current Parliament and planes to start using the runway by 2035. Rob Barnstone, campaign coordinator for No Third Runway Coalition. Hello, Rob.
Good evening.
Good evening. And Parmjit Danda, Executive Director of the Pro-Expansion Group, Back Heathrow. Parmjit, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Why are you against this, Rob?
Well, I think there's so many reasons, but I think some of the major reasons are the fact that this has huge implications for our environment, not just locally in West London, but also our climate change targets, which need to be abided to. And I just don't think this project is deliverable on so many levels.
Well, obviously the Chancellor differs with your view, and 100,000 jobs at stake, Parmjit.
Indeed, and there is a lot of support for this project locally in West London. Our own organisation has over 100,000 supporters. I very much respect Rob and his view, and he's been very consistent about this over the years in terms of the environmental arguments, but things have moved on over the years as well. We've got a fledgling sustainable aviation fuel industry now, but with work, that can make a huge difference. That can reduce emissions by up to 70%. And there are plans as part of this expansion to actually introduce new railway lines.
But you're creating, in creating a third runway, you're increasing the emissions, and then you're trying to reduce a percentage of them. The net emissions are increasing. Of course they are. Well, with a third runway, right?
Stephen, it's a really good question. You need to look at things, we all need to look at things in the round here, because this is our biggest port by value of goods. So the money that comes in from Heathrow actually will be paying for things like wind farms, solar panels, home insulation, and all the rest of it. And
sorry, how will it?
How will it? Because of the amount of money it brings in. It's something like additional £40 billion.
Brings into whom?
By 2040.
Brings into the Treasury.
To the Treasury. The Treasury is the government, and it needs to be investing in green energy, and it will.
Well,
there will be a sustainable aviation fuel industry that will be growing out of this as well, which is reducing carbon emissions greatly as well. And a huge amount of investment in new rail, Southern Rail Link or Western Rail Link, to get people out of their cars and getting to the airport by public transport.
Rob?
And who's paying for that, Parmjit? Because as we know, in the 5 years ago when Heathrow were previously going for this, they didn't commit to funding any of these projects that would require some of these rail upgrades like Southern Rail Access and Western Rail Access. You know, the estimates are that they're going to cost sort of 15 billion pounds alone, and Heathrow only committed to 1 billion. So has that now changed?
Well, a lot's changed over the years. The project is a more expensive one than it was. But as you know as well, Rob, the Southern Rail project is an entirely privately funded project. And overall, we're talking about possibly upwards of £40 billion of private investment to pull this project off. And at a time when the country's something like £3 trillion in debt, surely we need to be welcoming that kind of private sector investment.
I mean, I would say that the Treasury's own figures that when they previously did analysis on a third runway suggested that once you take into account things like the carbon abatement costs that would result as the creation of the third runway, that the value to the British economy would be something like £2 billion, not the £40 billion that you just quoted.
Well, we can trade stats and the Davis Commission, and he said £160 billion, but we might send everybody to bed and we don't want to switch off and go and watch Match of the Day. But I don't think anyone can doubt that this is going to create over 100,000 new jobs. There's 90,000 jobs at the moment on this campus at Heathrow Airport. A new runway is only going to increase the opportunities to trade. And globally, the airport has been full for very, very many years. It's at capacity. It's only got 2 runways when all of its rival airports have 4, 5, 6 or more. And there have been plans around since the 1940s, but we haven't built a new runway in the southeast of England since the Second World War. So I understand the Chancellor's frustration, if you like. It is time to get on and build. It's time to get on and build it and get that investment in.
What is the predicted split in demand for this runway, Parmjit? How much of it is for business travel? How much of it is for holiday passenger travel? What's the split here?
That's a really good question, Stephen. What a lot of people aren't aware of, Heathrow over the years has specialised in carrying freight around the world in passenger airlines. So when you're getting a flight over to America or to Europe or wherever you're going, there under your feet there is cargo. And there's all kinds of things, whether it's foods and beverages or perishables, medicines. It has become something that is unique to our country in terms of the level of cargo going through that airport. Now, as I said, it's something like 2/3 of our trade by value of goods. So it's both of those things, and that's what makes it a hub airport and so important, not just for us wanting to go on our holidays, which we do. We do want to fly, but we need to fly better. I accept that. But also as a trading nation.
But Stephen, if I may just come back to Parmjit on one of those things. He said Parmjit and quoted the government's line, which I think is a bit, is a bit precarious, to be honest, and about 100,000 new jobs. I was just looking at some figures this afternoon from Heathrow's employment survey, and it shows that between 2013 and 2018, there were actually 11,000 fewer colleagues at Heathrow in those 5 years. So Heathrow haven't really got the best record at creating long-term sustainable jobs, have they?
Well, I'm happy to come back on that, Rob, as well. As you recall, before COVID, there was something like 70,000 people directly employed on the campus. That doesn't include the logistics, people working in the supply chain and all the rest of it. That went down to 5,000 people when the airport was losing £5 million a day during COVID. The net consequences of that were in Hounslow alone, 30,000 people ended up on furlough. Now the airport is healthy again. There are 90,000 people employed on the site. And the supply chain, largely down to that freight and things being moved around the planet through our only hub airport, is probably in excess of 150,000 people.
Yeah, I don't question some of the statistics around COVID. That was a dreadful time for the local economy and the country. I'm simply saying that long-term, Heathrow haven't got the best record at creating some of these long-term jobs. So I really do question this claim of 100,000 new jobs, and I think it's a bit naughty, to be honest, of the Chancellor and people that support the expansion to say that many long-term jobs would be created.
Rob and Parmjit, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you. And I'm sure we'll come back to this at another time, but thank you.